Good morning. Good morning. How the devil are you doing this fine day? Hope you're all fit and well. After yesterday's foray into the world of politics, you'll be pleased to know that we are back in our comfort zone with a diggers-only show today. We do have some really cracking content for you as well. Before we move on, I do want to bring a couple of things to your attention. All things being equal, we will have another guest on tomorrow's show. This one isn't standing for Mayor of London, at least as far as I know, but he is very much focused on the future. His name is Chris Lafleur, and he's the managing director of ZQuip. If you were paying attention, you might recall that we brought you details of the ZQuip system last week. It's a system that basically replaces a diesel engine with a series of battery modules. Now, although Chris is actually based in the States, he is actually right here in the UK as we speak. So, technology allowing, he will be joining us on the show to talk about all things electric powered. And the timing of his appearance really couldn't be any better, because tomorrow night, you might recall, yes, there we are. I'm going to do a different view of that. There you are. Tomorrow night, 7 p.m, we will be joined on the show by JCB's Tim Burnhope, who will be bringing us up to speed on the non-road mobile machinery consultation that is taking place literally as we speak. Now, the findings of that consultation will inform the legislation that dictates the way in which construction equipment is powered in the future. So you have an opportunity to ask lots of questions about the retrofitting of diesel machines to electric in the morning, and then you will have a chance to ask about electric and hydrogen alternatives from a company with a foot in both camps. And you could even have the possibility of helping to direct the future course of legislation governing how this industry is powered as well. So you won't want to miss that. And one final thing before we move on. The hat. I'm sure you've seen. I'm wearing a different hat today. This is not my attempt at cultural appropriation. Don't worry. This was actually a birthday gift from a certain Mr. Gary Muirhead, and damn fetching it looks too. Look. I'm not going to try and do a Tommy Cooper impression. I did it off here. It didn't sound good. I actually received this over the weekend, and I've been dying to wear it, but I didn't think that a guy running for Mayor of London would appreciate that. And yes, just to anybody that wasn't here yesterday, Sean Batra, candidate for Mayor of London, said on this show yesterday, I am Batman. If that will come back to haunt him, we shall see. I am going to throw over to the chat very quickly, because we do appear to have had some good morning messages. Who we got? Dan Cullen saying, morning team, the provider of today's fine piece of headgear, Gary Muirhead, has just joined us as well. Morning, Mark, morning gang, morning Gary, and thank you for the hat and the other goodies as well. Good morning to Boss Demolition over on Instagram as well. Peter McKenna. Peter McKenna is glad that we're back on all things diggers. Thank fuck for that, he says. Jim Turner's with us as well. Morning, Jim. Thank you very much indeed for being here. Chris Ford says, good morning, masters of construction and deconstruction. Yes, that's you lot, not me, obviously. Ken Hatter is here as well. Mark Whiting is here. I'm not going to try and say this in the appropriate voice, but Peter McKenna says, just like that. Yes, just like that indeed. Mick Saunders is here as well. Who else we got? Good God, I thought Tommy Cooper was back. I probably look much the same as Tommy Cooper would look these days, actually. Mick Saunders says, funnily enough, I enjoyed yesterday, up until he started talking about donations for his running. Yeah, do you know, I've had that a few times. I had a couple of phone calls last night to say, well done for actually getting a mayoral candidate on the show, but handing around the begging bowl. Yeah, I know what you're saying. I do know what you're saying. Now, without further ado, let's get this show back on the road like we used to up until yesterday. I'm going to roll the intro, post the question of the day, and we're going to get this show on the road. Yes, it is Tuesday, the 27th of February, 2024. Welcome to the Break Fast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony. In today's show, stimulating simulators from Komatsu. It's a sore point with Liebherr. We're on site with LiuGong, and Bobcat's new compressors are in for a rough ride. Plus, Lord Bamford celebrates 60 years with JCB. But first, I'm going to very quickly remind you of our question of the day, which looks a bit like this. Yeah, our question of the day is quite simply this. If you could live anywhere in the world, where would you live? Now, I'm torn. I absolutely love the States, and I think Ken Hatter is in agreement. He has actually said Florida or Australia. I love the idea of living in the States, no language barrier, and I could explore different states for what remains of my sad and sorry life. However, I'd also love to live in Italy. I'd unquestionably struggle with the language, although I'm about to start learning it. But think how dapper I'd look. Think of all that lovely food. But what about you? In what other country would you like to live? Let us know in the chat. Now, got things slightly out of sequence at the moment. Do excuse me. I do need to show you today's mystery machine. So let me bring up the animation and I'll show you what you've got to work with. Here we go. Right, let me show you the machine that you have got to work with. This is today's mystery machine. Problem with these things, as I've quickly started to realise, is machines in this industry, by and large, are on tracks or they're on wheels. Doesn't really give a huge amount away. But if anybody's got that, I'm leaving it up because Chris Ford needs to fetch his glasses. I'm leaving that up on the screen. If anybody's got any clues on what that might be, I'd love to hear what you reckon. Dan Cullen is the first with an answer, and he's going for a Demolition 490. It is not that. I don't know why I bother. Richard Saltmarsh, don't remember seeing Richard here before, says an excavator. Yes, we kind of gathered that. But I've already been shot down in flames. Jim Turner, Volvo 950. I mean, I could have hung around and got him to put the F on the end of it, but it actually is. It is a Volvo 950. There we are. Just to prove it, a Volvo 950F. And Jim Turner got that from a small section of tracks. Jim, you need to get out more, but congratulations, well done. That's a remarkable feat, which means I can now move on with the rest of the show and not have to worry about our nonsense with mystery machines. But yeah, Volvo 950F, congratulations. Chris Ford, haha, that went well. Yeah, it really did. What you don't know is I'm looking at a set of notes on my screen here. And it basically says, play this advert, play that video, play this advert, mention the mystery machine. And all the way through, I've got mentions of the mystery machine. That part of my script is now out of the window. Jim Turner says it was just a guess. Well, could you guess a bit more wildly in future? Invent a machine. Let me run through the things. But yes, that's it. That's it. Mystery machine is over and done with. So we know what our question of the day is. Where in the world would you like to live? So with all of that destroyed destroyed with one quick flick of the keyboard, we're over and done with. Let's get on with this. Let me get that off the screen. Dan Cullen says the Volvo 950F. That was my next guess. Yes, of course it was, Dan. Of course it was. Gary Muirhead says the bolts on the undercarriage gave it away. Hey, listen, if it did, fair play. I mean, bearing in mind, a lot of you are watching this on a mobile, so I would imagine the image you're working with is roughly a pixel wide, but congratulations. Something in my brain said it, so it came out. I just trust my instinct. Sure, that's kept you in Safe and well over the years, Jim. Right, let's crack on, shall we? Machine simulators. Let's all talk about machines. Machine simulators, shall we? Are they a vital training aid, or are they a poor substitute for actual hands-on experience? Well, Komatsu customers seem to believe it's the former.
I think it's a safe way to practice, actually.
I think it's a smart idea. It will give you a different perspective in the amount of knowledge you need to operate a machine.
You learn to operate the machine before you take it out and drive it in the real world.
Would you hand over the keys of your brand new machine to an inexperienced driver? Would you ask your experienced operator to push your equipment to its limits to test? Well, in fact you can. In a Komatsu simulator, you can train operators, improve their driving skills, or let potential new customers discover the capabilities of our equipment.
It feels like you're in a machine, but you're not.
I think it was really realistic, actually, when you sit and it turns up and down, and you feel the whole operation.
I was on the demo area some minutes ago, and it was completely the same like on the simulator. When you sit in the simulator, the whole seat reacts like a normal machine.
Whether it's an excavator, wheel loader, or dump truck, we have simulators with real-life seats and controls, and scenarios that take drivers into immersive experiences that are extremely close to reality.
You can test the machine in a very realistic way without going to a construction site.
You won't damage stuff before you learn how to use it, so that when you actually start to use it, it would be, you know what you're doing.
Bad for the workshop because they don't have so many repairing, but it's better for the customer because this will not cost so much.
The thorough feedback of our simulators will make even your most experienced driver a better operator than before.
To train new young people driving a machine, but also for people who work with these machines for years and years, they can improve with it.
It's really interesting because you see the fuel consumption, all the operations, and you have all the parameters.
Maybe I will be a better driver out in the field.
Everyone talks about digitalization, and this is a part of it.
And yes, it looks like a fancy video game. We do have to admit, it's fun to enjoy.
Fun. This is very, very fun. I can do this all day. I'm pretty interested in the excavator as well, but I'll take it another time.
Experience reality in a Komatsu simulator.
Yeah, I remember. I'm going to say a very quick good morning, by the way. Good morning to Ollie Guns, who's watching over on Instagram, and also Big Bid Auctions, who have just joined us as well. And Diggerman, Gary McCusker, is also over on Instagram. Morning, gentlemen and ladies. Yes, simulators. Where were we? Let's have a look. Chris Ford, rather sarcastically, says, can it simulate a burst hose? I bet there is a program that could do that. I don't suppose they show it too much, but I would imagine it could do that. Gary Muirhead says, where can I have a go? Will it be at Intermat? Not as far as I know, but we are speaking with Komatsu about their display at Intermat, so I shall keep you posted should we hear anything on that. Andy Darvell has just joined us as well, saying good morning, good morning to you as well. Ken Hatcher says, I think they're a lot better than the original simulators I've tried. Funny you should say that. I remember speaking to a demolition friend of mine just after the NFDC unveiled their first high-reach simulator. He said something along the lines of, yeah, that's great. The trouble is, when you do something wrong on a simulator, you just start over. You do something wrong on site, someone dies. And a simulator gives you a false sense of security. I have to say, that stuck with me ever since. Just as a small aside, during the grand unveiling of the NFDC simulator, it broke down. You can insert your own jokes about that. Peter McKenna says, can it simulate the ground caving in? Again, I don't know if it can. You would imagine they would be able to write that into the program, but I don't actually know. Chris Ford says, love to have a go, though. Yeah, well, have a word with the fine folks at Marabini. They're not a million miles away from you. And Dan Cullen says, no, not better than being on an actual seat. Yeah. I listen. I do think it's a good way of potentially getting people up to speed before they get on a bigger machine or a brand new machine and that kind of thing. Is it a replacement for hands-on? I am unconvinced about that. But let me have your thoughts. Simulators, good, bad, or indifferent? Love to hear from you, particularly those over on Instagram, because there's lots of you. Let's have a bit of this, shall we?
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.
Cutting rock from a quarry bench. It's not for everyone. In fact, for Liebherr, it's a sore point, and that's SAW, saw.
My name is Jake Newman and I'm the site engineering manager at Bundanon Sandstone Quarry. Bundanon Sandstone Quarry is a sandstone quarry which has been operating since 1850. We primarily use the Liebherr excavator to quarry sandstone using a rock saw. We also use it to load out rubble and aggregate products. The Liebherr gives us 20 different preset attachments, which gives us more flexibility in operating different rock saws under different conditions. The machine's running our single-bladed rock saw currently, but it can also run our dual-bladed and triple-bladed saw as well. We chose a Liebherr excavator for its reliability and its productivity in running the rock saw in the quarry, up to 12 hours a day. Some of our purchase criteria was the purchase price, the reliability of the machine, and the service from Liebherr. The servicing aspect of the machine has been really easy. We can either service the machine ourselves or Liebherr's always on hand who can do the servicing quickly. They do everything on time. Some of the challenges that we have using the rock saw efficiently with the machine. The machine needs to offer high flow and high torque to the rock saw. Liebherr uses 3 separate hydraulic pumps, which allows us to operate the rock saw uninterrupted with high torque and high power. We're impressed with the Tier 4 final engine in the Liebherr excavator. It offers us low fuel consumption and low emissions, which is important to the quarry. We've got a good working relationship with Liebherr, and they've been really helpful throughout the whole process of purchasing this machine.
Love to take that for a spin. Imagine slicing and dicing all day. Good fun indeed. Now, we've had a few more comments over on the chat, all about simulators. First up is, Mick Saunders, who says, simulators are a good toy. Nothing gives you the feel of actually driving or flying. No matter what you feed into a computer, it will only spit out what is programmed and not the unexpected by day-to-day usage. It's a good point. Peter McKenna says, video games are great, but you're not as attached as training in the real world. Like going on site encased in bubble wrap. It's a fine quote. I may steal that. Dan Cullen is in agreement, says, as when you... in that jump of the machine, it's not the same. It gives you a full sense of security. I totally agree. Ken Hatcher does say, however, you can actually drive a D11 the other side of the world on a simulator. You can. I have. Not well, but I have. Who else have we got here? Is it like a flight simulator? After 9 to 11, our kids spent hours flying a plane into buildings. Both turned out to be well-balanced young men, not suicidal terrorists. Footnote, the terrorists we have is the dog. Yes, I've got a terrorist dog as well. Wouldn't have it any other way. Let's have a look. We've also got some comments, I think, on the Liebherr. Dan Cullen says, well, first of all, he says that, wow, that's a saw and a half. Yes, it most certainly is. What damage would it do if the bearings gave up? A lot. would be my guess. Peter McKenna says, "Oh my God, Ken's going to be on his high horse about the sprockets now. Were they misplaced? I wasn't paying attention." Just so you know, I've got a bag of sweets on my desk today. I've been nibbling those while you've been doing this. Gary Muirhead says 20 preset attachments. That's more like it. Yeah, absolutely. Dan Carter says, looks way too close to the dipper, but what a setup. 20 different presets. You'd be looking to use them, wouldn't you? You know, please give me a job where I can use all of my presets, please. I remember early days of PowerPoint to do slideshow presentations. I think you had, I don't know, 30 fonts and 50 different colors. Use all of them. That's the way forward until we learn better. And Ken Hatcher says, I bet that blade doesn't last long. No, I bet it doesn't either. No safety guards, though. Should anything happen, does that saw go away? I'd like to think it probably does. Bet the dust plays havoc with grease and bearings on that saw. Yes, I would imagine you're right. Let's have a look. Chris Ford says, it looks like a proper bag of sweets. Shall I show you this? There's only one content, and it is those. Can you see those? There's a shrimp. Morning, Mick. I'm eating sweets. I do apologise. We've had a comment here from over on YouTube, and I'm not going to respond to it. I will leave those here on the show to respond. Imperator K2 says, who are you? A kind person? I can't answer that because obviously I'm going to say yes. Footy says, be careful with your diabetes. Footy, thank you for thinking of me. My diabetes doesn't actually work on the day after my birthday. That's how it works, right? You don't have to worry about it after your birthday. I think that's how it works. Yes, please. Jim Turner says, yes, I'd say definitely a kind person. Thank you, Jim. Peter McKenna, however, says, no, he's a complete and utter twat. Can't argue with either of them. Should we crack on? I think we probably should because I need to swallow this sweet. Chris Fall says, only shrimps and no bananas. I had king prawn on my sandwiches yesterday. No, there are no bananas. I have a bit of a thing about... I have a bit of a thing about false banana. I don't like false... I like bananas. I like bananas a lot. I don't like things that taste like banana. Gary Muirhead says, I will answer that. Mark Anthony is a very kind person. Thank you very much indeed. Mick Saunders says he's okay apart from the West Ham crap. And speaking of West Ham, did anybody see the West Ham result last night? Yes, we won 4-2. And Jared Bowen, soon to be OBE and MBE and possible World Cup winner, Jared Bowen. Hat-trick, yes. Dan Cullen says he's a very kind guy in reply to your questions. Jim Turner says he's just disguised as a twat today. I have to say, there's something about this hat, and I do realise there are Tommy Cooper overtones on this, but that hat should have one of those. Look at this. Hats with movement. Hats with actual movement. I think that's the way forward. Peter McKenna says, if it wasn't for Mark, I wouldn't be here. I couldn't resist being the clown. Thank you very much indeed. Let's have a see. It might be the day after your birthday, but you still got to be careful. We don't want you keeling over. No, I don't want to be keeling over either. Dan Cullen says he's a gentle in his shining armor for first 2 hours, then devil in disguise in the evening. Yes, this is the point where I would like to say my wife would agree. She wouldn't. Peter says you look very fetching in that fez, Mark. Thank you very much indeed. Cultural appropriation, alive and well on the Break Fast Show. Now, where are we? yes, we don't have enough LiuGong on this show, is the thing I was about to say. That's not down to any anti-Chinese sentiment on my part. It's more down to the lack of decent LiuGong footage that is available. So when a good film comes along, we want to seize it with both hands. Like this one. Yeah, cracking film, cracking machine too, and Peter McKenna with an update. See, we have correspondence in the field. Peter says Fox Brothers is now the biggest LiuGong dealership in the UK, soon to have a service team to match. Dan Cullen backs that up, says, well, thanks to Peter, we got to see Fox's yard and Hunt's yard, and what an impressive outfit. And the way the kit is all parked up, tidy as well. Good to hear. You guys had a bit of an outing together, didn't you, over the weekend? Don't know how that came about, but I think we should have reports and videos and things like that. Maybe. So long as you didn't get up to anything that we shouldn't be sharing, let us know.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
"60 years ago today, 60 years ago this week, should I say, a young fella, still wet behind the ears, followed in his father's formidable footsteps and joined the family firm. 60 years later, he's still there. He's still actively involved, and in many ways, he has probably surpassed the accomplishments of his father. Yeah, happy anniversary to JCB's Lord Bamford. Still a driving force at the company 6 decades on. Seriously, still see him about the place whenever we go up there, and whenever you speak to anybody in the team, they refer to the input of the chairman. The chairman is still actively involved. Speaking of JCB, you may have spotted him in the background, actually. There he is. That's Tim Burnhope. He was in that film very briefly. Tomorrow night, 7 p.m, we're going to be speaking to Tim Burnhope about all things related to non-road mobile machinery. The consultation is taking place right now, and it's going to close in about a month's time. The findings from that consultation will inform what Tim Burnhope describes as the most important legislation this industry will ever face. So if you want to help direct that legislation, or if you'd just like to understand how it might impact your company and you obviously, please be here at 7 o'clock tomorrow night. Chris Ford says, looks like Lord Bamford had a nice bit of cake. Yes, he certainly did. Jim Turner says, fair play to him. Why step away if you enjoy it? Quite right too. Collective noun for a group of Turkish policemen. The Fez. Mick, I expect better of you. I really do. Peter McKenna says, got to miss the crack, folks. Hospital appointment at 11:30, so I'll be leaving in 25 minutes. I'm going to get to the crack very quickly, although our final film of the day is fairly brief today, actually. So, yeah, let's crack on, because we want to make sure that Peter McKenna gets to see all of the good stuff before he heads out the door. So, let me throw one of these up. Yeah, I hope Peter can hang on for just about 2 minutes now, because a few weeks ago, fresh back from Paris, we brought you the news that Bobcat had unveiled a new range of compressors and that the company was planning to show them off at Intermat in April. Well, one of our number, a certain Mr. McKenna, questioned just how well those compressors would perform while being towed. Well, as it turns out, Bobcat have thought of that. They've even produced a video just for you, Peter. My next question was going to be, are you convinced now, Peter? He says, it's great at 25 to 30 mile an hour. It's the clowns on the motorway doing 50 to 60 where the accident happens with them. Thank you very much indeed for your input. Mick Saunders says, I think that answers a few questions. I thought so. Even setting aside the purpose of the film, cracking video from Bobcat. Looking forward to catching up with them while I'm in Paris. The driver wasn't even trying. It wasn't going from one wheel to another. Yes, fair comment. Chris Ford has also asked when I can get the right one to play. There we are. Come on. Is the Bobcat compressor a rebadged Doosan? My guess is it probably is, but I don't know. I will answer that. Peter McKenna says, sorry, you would rather we spoke the truth. That's all we do on this show. It's all we do. I think that's the way forward, rather than sound bites and stuff. Dan Cullen says, not a bad video. Still don't understand why they don't use bigger wheels to suit sites. Love the braking. Yeah, totally agree. Okay, so shall we call a halt to all of this nonsense now? Because that just about wraps up the main part of this morning's show. I'm going to roll the outro in just a second before leaping gazelle-like over into the chat to see what you're all saying today, talking about where in the world you'd like to live. Lord Bamford clocking up 60 years. The fact that we interviewed Batman yesterday. Apparently, all of that is up for grabs, should you so desire. If you can't stick around, please stay safe, look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues. Hope to see you again very soon. But if you do have the time and the inclination, I will be back with the Craic momentarily. Got to be honest, thoroughly enjoyed yesterday and had some very good feedback actually from yesterday's show with Sian Batra, who is standing for the position of Mayor of London. But very glad to be back in my comfort zone. I know what I'm doing around diggers and stuff. I'm going to go back to the beginning of the chat, but I do need to share this because it's fresh. We were just talking about compressors. The problems start when you're towing a compressor and it passes you. I may have recounted this before. Back when I was a young reporter working on Contract Journal and Plant Managers Journal, I wasn't given a company car for the first couple of years. So to get around that, we used to sort of reach out to the likes of Ford and Nissan and anybody else that basically did vehicles. And if I was going off on a trip somewhere, I would basically loan a vehicle to agree to write a review of the vehicle while I was away. And there was, I could be as honest as I needed to be, so there was no problem with that. But one of the vehicles that I had once was a Nissan pickup. I wish I could remember which one it was, but it was a proper, not like a what did I have? The L200 from Toyota. It was bigger than that. And I pulled up a set of lights literally half an hour after I'd taken delivery of it. And it seemed like the horizon was shifting. And it was because I'd put on the brakes and the back end was going around. And I kind of saw it creeping up on me on my right-hand side. Yeah, let's get on with this. I've had a truck wheel pass me on the motorway. I've had a car wheel pass me on a road just up the road from where my parents used to live as well. Dan Cullen says, it was a very interesting show yesterday and you handled it very well. Thank you very much indeed. I don't know if this is an expression, but it really should be. Peter, no one will make a dog's fart difference. They're all too wrapped up in their own ego. So after yesterday's show, this is what Mick was responding to. So after yesterday's show, do any of you actually believe someone will actually make a difference in London? No, I don't. I'm going to go back to the beginning of the chat in a minute, but I think we have a tendency to take on too much. I don't think that anybody or any organisation can oversee everything. I personally think that Sadiq Khan has done a terrible, terrible job in London. I really, really do. But can he really be across everything? And I realise he's got a team working with him, but can he really be across absolutely everything? One of the things that I find interesting about this non-road mobile machinery directive, or it's a consultation at the moment, will ultimately become some form of legislation, is the fact that the government has effectively said, look, we need to do away with diesel, we need to have more sustainable fuel sources, but we don't know how to go about it for the best of everyone. Tell us. And I think that's where it works best. And again, I've been writing a piece today that is having a bit of another swipe at the National Federation of Demolition Contractors. And I wonder if their brief now is too big. How can you possibly speak for the entire industry when you represent less than a quarter of it? So rather than worrying about that, rather than claiming to be the global voice of the demolition industry, rather than arsing about trying to speak for everyone, why don't you just concentrate on doing your best for the bit that you do speak to? And when you look at somebody like Sadiq Khan or Shyam Batra, or whoever ends up as Mayor of London next time around, let Transport for London, but bad as they can be, let them take care of transport. Let the police take care of the policing, and you just concentrate on the bits that you can do. Mick Saunders says that bloke came across as a nice fella. It's something I thought about all yesterday afternoon. There was something not right. Do you know, one of the things that listen, I'm quite pleased that he came on the show, because it did make a nice change, and I think it also gave a bit of a nod of recognition to what we do here. The very fact that he was willing to do that. But if you were a really serious politician, would you be on a digger show? Would you? Would you? I don't think you would. Peter McKenna says, I just hope he gets rid of road user charging, or the working class will be all on the dole. No one will be able to afford to drive to work in the future. And there again is the issue. It would be fine, you know, if we all just sat down and said, look, you know, cars are destroying the atmosphere. We're all going to end up either having to grow gills or dying, because, you know, we're going to be underwater and all of that kind of thing. So the only alternative is you give up your cars. But when you give up your cars, we will put a transport system that is second to none to get you about the place. Affordable, reliable, punctual, and all of the good things. But they don't. They don't. Mick Saunders says, mind you, living in London and Tower Hamlets, I don't trust none of them. And I think that's the same with politicians. We were having this conversation in this house a couple of days ago. I remember thinking, and I'm going back to, I don't know, 2014, possibly even 2012. I remember looking at Nick Clegg, Lib Dem Nick Clegg, and thinking to myself, he seems all right. I mean, at one point, he actually went on TV, very unpolitician-like, and said, we know that you want better public services, you'll have to pay for them. Make no bones about it, you want better public services, you will have to pay for them. And I thought, well, at least the guy's straight, you know, at least he's being honest. And then he basically jumped into bed with David Cameron, and all of that fell apart. And I was looking at, I try to avoid politics on the TV because, frankly, it infuriates me. And I was looking at the House of Commons the other day, and I realised everybody's got it in for this, what's his name, Lee Anderson at the moment, probably rightly, Suella Braverman, quite possibly Mrs. Satan, and so on down the line. But I was looking around the House of Commons, both sides of the House, thinking, I wouldn't want anything to do with any of these people. They don't even look like me. Not that I would wish that on them, but they don't. They seem to exist in a completely separate universe to me. Yeah, I'm putting it up because, you know, it's a valid answer. Mick Saunders says Tommy Robinson will be a game changer, might be a civil war, or even our Nigel. Can't stand either of them. But honestly, believe that Tommy Robinson should be locked up and have the key thrown away. But as we said, or as Peter said earlier, be honest. That's your belief. That's your belief. I'm not going to try and talk you around. It's not my job. All politicians sound and look great on the surface, but when they get elected, they show their true form. Yeah. I had a phone call last night about Shyam Batra. And as I say, I mean, I've got no axe to grind here. He didn't pay to be on the show. I don't get to vote in the election, so I've got no axe to grind whatsoever. But he reached out, and I spoke to him on Friday, I spoke to him on Saturday, I spoke to him on Sunday, and then obviously we had him on the show yesterday. And he seems absolutely fine. You know, if he got in and said, Mark, pop along to a do that we're having to celebrate the fact that I'd go, because he seems like a nice fella. Whether he's going to deliver on his promises of giving back the ULEZ money, who the hell knows? Mick Norton. I will go back to the beginning in just a second. In 1969, I hooked up to a brand new Bristol compressor trailer behind my Bray shovel loader and travelled to the highest accessible point on Gibraltar's Rock. When I couldn't get the damn thing started, I said to my fitter, "It's bloody brand new and won't start." He calmly replied, "So was the Titanic." Brilliant. When you get around to writing your memoirs, Mick, put me down for a copy, would you? Right, I am back to the beginning of the chat now. which is where I should have started all along. Who was first? Dan Cullen very kindly saying, good morning. Don't forget the mic. I didn't forget the mic this morning. I did okay. Morning all, says Peter McKenna, who is headed out the door fairly soon. So we're going to rattle through these. There is Dan Cullen. Morning team. The provider of today's fine headwear. I have to get... When I first started having this thing in my ear, I thought that's going to be annoying. Quite like it. This hat is going to be making a regular appearance, I would say. Jim Turner's here as well, saying good morning, Jim. Thank you very much indeed for your presence, as always. Ken Hatcher is here. Mark Whiting is here. Peter McKenna. I'm not doing it. No, I'm definitely not doing it. Footy is here as well. Good morning to you as well. Good God, I thought Tommy Cooper was back. Was anyone else watching live when Tommy Cooper actually passed away on the stage at the London Palladium? It was televised. I don't know if anybody else remembers this, but obviously Tommy Cooper, to my mind, I realise humour is very much an objective thing, but to my mind, Tommy Cooper, one of the funniest men ever, just had something about him. I don't know whether it was the way he looked or the way he moved or whatever it was, just an intrinsically funny guy. But yeah, he was performing, I think it was like the Raw Variety performance or something like that, and he collapsed on stage and he'd had a heart attack. And he was basically sat on the floor and it sounded like he was snoring. And the entire audience, including us at home, I was back with my parents at the time, we all sat there thinking, oh, that's part of the act. And it turned out, no, it wasn't. Terrible way to go. Although he probably would have quite appreciated that. Remember hearing a story about Tommy Cooper as well. Apparently he and his wife, because he was on the road a lot, sort of travelling the country doing his act, he travelled a lot, but they had a tradition of always going out for Sunday lunch, and they had a particular place in Brighton. I've actually eaten in the place. There was a particular restaurant in Brighton they used to go to on a regular basis. And one day they'd had an argument. And she went off without him and went to the restaurant. And he turned up in a suit, tie around his neck, but no shirt. But he had a shirt in his hands, and he walked in the restaurant and said, couldn't iron that, could you? See, told you. Man had funny bones. Mick Saunders is here as well. Morning, Mick. Dan Cullen says, it was a great show yesterday. Yeah, it makes a nice change. I have to admit, I'm looking forward to... We've got a couple of people on tomorrow. One in the morning, which is Chris Lafleur from Z-Quip. Those are the people that do the battery modules that replaces a diesel engine. I don't know if you were... Well, somebody was watching. I think it may have been Mick Norton said it. I can't... If anybody can remember, please let me know. Or if you'd like to claim responsibility. We played the Z-Quip film that we shot over at the Internet Press Day. And somebody said, and I think it was Mick, they've missed the boat because we are all going hydrogen. Yeah, they were watching from New York State, which is where they're based. And they came back and said, is there any chance we can come on your show and actually talk to your audience and explain why we don't believe we have missed the boat? And I said, well, funnily enough, we've got something very much related to that with this NRMM non-road mobile machinery. So we've got Tim Burnhope tomorrow night. But ahead of that, you can actually get the lowdown on Z-Quip's take on the electrification of construction equipment. So when we go into the show in the evening, hopefully you will be forewarned with some new way of looking at things, a new perspective. And also, I'm going to try and find this. I meant to flag this up earlier. Bear with me just 1 second while I find this. One of the things that I found, I've had to pre-read this NRMM consultation document, and one of the things that's in there is they have made some predictions on the likely cost of hydrogen when it becomes available. And apparently they are estimating a cost of hydrogen initially, and this is initially, so this will be about sort of 2030 or thereabouts. Hydrogen will cost £7 per kilogram, and they expect it to fall to £2 per kilogram by 2050. So I realise that a lot of people are saying that hydrogen is going to be the great saviour, but by the sound of it, much the same as we've had with the premium on electric machines, it looks very much like when hydrogen does finally pitch up, you're going to be paying through the nose to have it. Is that going to snooker hydrogen to begin with? Is that going to push back the doing away with diesel? Is it going to give electric machines a bit longer to be perfected? Interesting times. Mick Saunders says, funnily enough, I enjoyed yesterday up until he started talking about donations for his running. Apparently I think he needs 10 grand. 10 grand to actually be in the pot when they actually start the election process. 10 grand doesn't seem like a lot. I mean, it doesn't seem like a lot to actually raise, but to a businessman doesn't seem like a lot to dip into your own pocket either. Maybe that's not how it works. I don't know. My question of the day, based on the fact that we all agreed yesterday that London is broken and the rest of the country probably ain't much better, my question of the day was that. In which country would you really like to live? I've got to say, the more I think about it, I'm trying to keep up my reading. I'm up to, I can't remember if it's 12 or 13 books that I've put away since the 1st of January. I want to learn Italian, but I don't want to give up the time I'm spending reading. So I've got in my, there's a software platform called Babbel, teach you a language. In my Babbel basket, I've got the course to learn Italian, but I don't want to buy it until I've got a few more books under my belt. But yes, I'd love to live in Italy, mainly for the food and the clothes and the people. But America's nice too. So that was my question of the day. Peter McKenna says, I had to turn catch up off. I kept having to say bullshit and think I've now got a sore throat. That's dealing with politicians, I guess, isn't it? Question of the day. Ken Hatcher immediately said, no great surprise, he would go to Florida or Australia. Mick Saunders also saying Australia as well. Now, I'm going to take a wild guess here. Footier says, if I could be anywhere, it would be either, it says switch themes. I'm thinking that's probably Switzerland or Austria because I love the countryside. Views are amazing. Yeah, they really are. I used to do a lot of work over in Switzerland, primarily around sort of Zurich and places like that. And I have asthma, which is why I've got one of these sat on my desk. I don't use it very often, but I do need that from time to time. Whenever I was in Zurich, I never needed it. You can walk up and down mountains and not need it because it just feels like the air is that clear there. And I'm sure that's not exactly how it works. It may have just been psychosomatic or something like that. But yeah, never needed my Ventolin while I was in Switzerland. Jim Turner says, politicians, mayors should have no wage or expenses. Those jobs should be for successful people that want to make a difference to society. I get the impression that's two types of people. I think there are successful people and those that want to make a difference. I don't think the two necessarily go together. Dan Cullen, who likes a bit of a chill, says, Iceland or Sweden? Never been to Iceland. Sweden is lovely. Bastard expensive, but a lovely, lovely place. And the Swedes are marvellous. And Swedish ladies, I'm married to a brunette. And when I'm sat on a palazzo somewhere in Italy, watching the world go by and watching the ladies go by, I'm sat there thinking, well, Italian women are incredible, incredible. And then you go to Sweden. Oh my Lord. Some of the most beautiful people I've ever seen, really. Ken Hatcher says he gets homesick after a week. I've never really understood that as a concept. You know, these people that emigrate and they then get their family to send them PG tips or Marmite or something. If I were to go and live in Italy, somewhere in Bergamo maybe, I were to go and live there, I cannot imagine a day where I would wake up and think, this pasta and this pizza and all of that, it's all well and good, but I could really do with a Heinz baked bean. I can't imagine that thought ever entering my head. Peter McKenna says, I'm quite happy to end my life here in the UK. Okay, we might not have a glorious sunshine, but it's home. Yeah, well, I'm only throwing it out there. Could I go and live in Italy? No, I probably couldn't. Obviously, I've got my kids, I've got grandchildren, and my wife has got two quite elderly and not particularly healthy parents. I don't think I'm going anywhere anytime soon, but, you know, I could dream. I can dream of sipping espressos on a palazzo somewhere. Glenn Johnston, good morning, Glenn. Thank you very much indeed for being here. Jim Turner shot down our mystery machine without a moment's hesitation this morning. Can't believe he did that, but thank you. It was the Volvo. I can prove it to you. There it is. It is the Volvo 950F. What a tool it is as well. Really is a fantastic machine. Gary Muirhead says he would go and live in the Canary Islands, Tenerife. Are you booked for Tenerife again, Gary? Bet you are. Let's have a look. Now, I said that a lot of people are watching our Mystery Machine on a very, very small screen, obviously on their mobiles or something like that. Where are we? Peter McKenna says, I'm watching on a 55-inch 4K ultra-wide, and I still didn't get it. Sorry, phone was ringing. Got rid of that. Simulators. Can it simulate a burst hose? Yes, I bet it probably can. I bet it probably can. And it probably should. If you're going for ultimate realism, I think it probably should. Gary Muir says, where can I have a go? Will it be internet? Not as far as I'm aware. But I think, given the fact that the main themes of Intermat this year are going to be decarbonisation and digitisation, I wouldn't be at all surprised if anybody's from Komatsu is watching. I'm due to speak to them anyway, but if anyone from Komatsu is watching and would like to clarify that, I'd love to hear from you. Although, Gary, that's not going to help you much because I think you're going to Scott Plant, are you? There we are. More on simulators. I think they're a lot better than the original ones. Yes, they are much, much smoother now. And building in haptics so that you actually get the feeling through the levers and the seat rocks, and that they are a different thing entirely. Peter McKenna says, can it simulate the ground caving in? Again, it is only a piece of programming. So yes, it probably can. And maybe it should. Maybe, particularly with a high reach where you're talking about, potentially tracking over unseen voids and that kind of thing. Maybe it should. Maybe that should be part of it. You do your pre-start check. You go and walk the site and make sure that you know exactly what's what. And if you don't, then there is something built into that program that says, nope, you're in a basement. That'll teach you. Lots of people saying they'd like to have a go, even though it is no replacement whatsoever for being in an actual seat. Question of the day, back to Jim Turner, New Zealand. He says, similar weather and scenery to parts of parts of Britain that I love, but there's no bugger there. Absolutely perfect. Apparently the South Island only has 1 million people on it. Man after my own heart. Middle of nowhere, lots of dogs, very few people. That's where I want to live. I don't know where in the world that is. A bit of sunshine. Don't want too much because I'm a pasty bugger. Simulators are a good toy. Nothing gives you the feel of actually driving or flying, no matter what you feed into a computer, says Mick Saunders. It will only spit out what is programmed and not the unexpected day-to-day usage. All very, very true indeed. Where are we? Chris Ford says, I think Jim's got the right country. Never been there, but it sounds nice from what I've heard. Yeah, lots of people. Although, have you got friends who swear by? I realise I was in Italy 4 times last year, but 3 of the 4 were work. But I've got friends who went on holiday one went to Malta and the other went to Cyprus. Jesus, 30 plus years ago, and that was where their travel stopped. Where are you going on holiday? Oh, Malta. We love Malta. Same hotel? Yeah, same hotel. Same restaurants? Yeah, same. They went and they fell in love and they don't go anywhere else. I can't get my head around that. Is that not too familiar? Is the fact that you only do it once a year or twice a year possibly? Is that a big enough gap? Doesn't feel like it to me. I'm We're going to Italy in May to celebrate my wedding anniversary, long overdue. But at some point in the year, I'm sure I'll be going to another country that isn't Italy. I'd like to get back to Spain, specifically Barcelona. I'd like to go to Seville at some point because, you know, that's part of exploration and travel, isn't it? The idea of going back time and time again to the same place, don't get it. Anybody else? Let me know. Ken Hatcher says you could drive a D11 on the other side of the world on a simulator. You can. I have. The only thing I remember about it was the speed with which I asked the question, which I thought was a valid question, bearing in mind the machine that I was driving. I was in Birmingham in the UK. The machine was in Arizona. So I don't know how many what is that, 6,000 miles, possibly a bit more than that. And I said, you know, what is the time lag between what I do here and what happens there? And the guy said, turn the lights on. Click on. I may have well have been sat in the machine. There was no lag whatsoever. Dan Cullen enjoying the Liebherr saw. 20 preset attachments. That's more like it, he says. Gary Muirhead. Dan Cullen also likes the idea of the 20 setups or the 20 presets as well. Are they useful? Are they useful? Bearing in mind, we had this conversation a while back where I think we universally agreed, much the same as I set up my computer. I spend an hour or two setting up a new computer and then I leave it the hell alone. And I got the impression that you were all exactly the same. Set up the machine once and then stick with it. I thought that was the way it worked. Let me know. We've covered a lot of these. I think we all agreed that I come across as a kind person, but I'm actually, when I can find, where is it? It's here somewhere. There you are, Peter McKenna. No, he's a complete and utter twat. Peter, I could pop out the door behind me and fetch another 3 or 4 people that would agree wholeheartedly with the fact that he's a bit of a twat. No bananas, only shrimps for me today. Peter McKenna says, I look very fetching in the fez. Just makes me look like I've got no hair whatsoever. And I promise there is some. I mean, you know, there's a bit, not a lot, but there is a bit. So Peter McKenna and Dan Cullen got together this weekend. And there we are. It says, when I can get it to play, it was a spur of the moment meetup. Went for lunch and whilst out, took Dan around a few of the sights and sounds of the locality. Thoroughly enjoyed by both parties. So I guess Dan went up to sort of Prestonish or thereabouts. Looks like Lord Bamford had a nice bit of cake. Can I tell you something about JCB? There are many things that JCB do very, very well. I don't drive machines, so I'm not going to comment on those. People love them, people hate them, some people are between the two. But let me tell you about JCB. If you are fortunate enough to have lunch with JCB, you are in for a culinary treat. And one of the culinary treats that you can rely upon, anytime you go there, the JCB creme brulee is Gordon Ramsay-esque in its quality. It is, listen, in press circles, we talk in hushed tones about the creme brulee that you're served at JCB. Last time I was up there, we went to lunch with Georgina, the JCB digger girl, saw the menu, no mention of creme brulee. They had sticky toffee pudding instead. Now, don't get me wrong, I like a sticky toffee pudding, but a creme brulee at JCB is a rare and splendid treat. Up comes the sticky toffee pudding, every bit as good as the creme brulee. Yeah, really was that good. If you get a chance to eat at JCB, you really should. Going to say, good morning. Chris Charlton has just joined us over on Instagram. Morning, Chris. Keep up the good work with the video, my friend. And keep up the good work with the Demolition as well. Let's do that the other way around. Keep up the good work with the Demolition. Keep up the good work with the filming of the Demolition. That's the order you should be doing those things in. Peter McKenna says, got to miss the Craic. Hospital appointment at 11:30, so leaving. He may have already gone. Rattling through. Dan Cullen says, Andy Darvell, Jim Turner, Chris Ford, I'm up for meeting up at some point if you guys are interested. Well, I mean, I would certainly suggest that two of those, Messrs Turner and Ford, they are up roughly the same part of the world. I think a good place to meet up with those would be at Hillhead. And if you're going to do that, I'll buy the coffee. How about that? I'll buy the coffee. Andy Darvell is a bit closer to home, or generally a bit closer to home. He's not a million miles away from you, actually. I'll leave you to sort that one out yourself. Dan Cullen says, I'd love Canada, Iceland, Sweden. Great kit, lovely cold environment. There you are. Funnily enough, while I've been speaking, I've actually had a phone call from Shyam Batra. I'm going to give him a call after the show, see what he's after. Mick Sutton says, you answered it, Mark. Why would a candidate want to come on your show? It's a trade-orientated show, but it's an outlet for it. Yeah, absolutely. And listen, I knew that going in. Absolutely, 100%. Let's have a look. Peter McKenna was tuned in when Tommy Cooper died. Yeah, we thought he was faking it until the production team made out it wasn't an act. Yeah, and there is Peter McKenna going. Loved the tale about Tommy Cooper, where after a taxi journey, he would thank each driver by putting a little something into the driver's pocket with the party. Thanks, here's a little something to get yourself a drink. The little something was a tea bag. There's a really great story, actually. I don't know if you've ever heard this. I don't even know where you'd find it, but the comedian Lee Evans. Lee Evans came into show business mainly because his dad had been in show business. His dad was a bit of an all-round entertainer, singer, kind of like a Bruce Forsyth type character. And apparently he was supporting Tommy Cooper at one particular event. So he went on first and Tommy Cooper was coming on as the star of the show. And apparently Tommy Cooper arrived late. And Lee Evans' dad had to sort of fudge for a little while Tommy Cooper was getting himself prepped. But in the end, Tommy Cooper said, just give me the microphone. And they gave him the microphone in the dressing room. And basically he talked before about, I can't find my trousers. I've only got one shoe and all this kind of thing. Before he even walked on the stage, the entire audience was in stitches. He hadn't even appeared at that point. Let's have a look. Jim Turner says, I wonder how many solar panels, wind turbines, hydroelectric need to make enough hydrogen for a normal day's running. A lot would be my guess. Chris Ford says, I married a Duracell. Copper-coloured top, bless her. Here's a thought. Maybe we should meet the wives. I don't mean... I'm not erring towards readers' wives. Trust me, I'm really not. My wife pops up on this show every once in a while. We've mentioned Gary Muirhead's wife in the past. I think we've mentioned Peter Muirhead's wife. We haven't seen them. Maybe we should do that. Just had a picture and I pleased myself over to a job, check on some temp propping. So if not about tomorrow, oh well, the propping wasn't good. Have a good day, gents, and stay safe. More specifically, Mick, you stay safe. Don't go anywhere near propping. Chris Ford says, JCB is the only place I've had pumpkin soup. I bet it was marvellous, wasn't it? Garvin at Mostly Diggers has joined us somewhat belatedly. We're heading for the door now. Garvin, good of you to join us anyway. Jim Turner says, I'll hopefully be at Hillhead, so we'll be up for meeting you lot. Looking forward to it. If you're buying the coffee, I'll bring a bucket. Hillhead it is then. Chris, looking forward to it. It's about time the three of us, Jim, Chris and myself, actually got together. Chris Ford says, I was about to say, there's a magazine for that. Yeah, well, don't forget, I used to work for that magazine. Well, I used to work for a couple of magazines. I sold my first adult story to Fiesta. And then when I was granted a column by the same publishers, I was working on Razzle. Razzle, loved a reader's wife. The old ones really are the best. Mick Norton says, my wife's a redhead. No hair, just a redhead. See, now I'm starting to wonder, actually. I've got this on. I don't know quite how secure the dye in this hat is, if I turn up tomorrow and I have a red head, Gary, you'll have to explain yourself, and I can only apologise. The future's gold, says people. Let's should we go about our business now? I think we'll call it a day. I do need to go back and call our mayoral candidate, see what he's all about, and I'll be back again tomorrow. And I'll be back, just to very quickly remind you, twice tomorrow morning, technology allowing. It's a weird way how this has panned out. Bearing in mind, I can, with this system, so long as somebody's got a webcam, I can speak to somebody anywhere in the world. And I was planning to interview this or speak to Chris LaFleur at ZQuip from New York. Would have been slightly uncomfortable for him, because it would have been getting me out of bed. Well, actually get him on the show at 5 o'clock in the morning, where he is. Turns out he's actually in the UK. So he's here for the next couple of days. So we'll be speaking to him. And then tomorrow night, obviously, we'll be speaking to Tim Burnhope as well. I'm not going to read that out, but I've worked in the printers where they made those books. Or Jim Taylor says, or adult magazines, as I should call them. I'm going to tell you a very, very quick story. Very, very quick story. First magazine I worked on full-time was a magazine called Caterer and Hotel Keeper, which, as the name suggests, was about hotels and restaurants and that kind of thing. Turns out that magazine was actually printed at the same print house as Penthouse magazine. I'm sure you've all heard tale of Penthouse magazine. My former deputy editor on Caterer and Hotel Keeper had announced he was leaving. And we used to have, Caterer and Hotel Keeper was a weekly magazine. So we used to have a weekly meeting, so that we would do the magazine, and then we would all sit around and, what did we like, what didn't we like, what could we do better next time. Unbeknown to us, our departing deputy editor had called the printers and had a special one-off edition made. So the cover was Caterer and Hotel Keeper, but everything inside was a copy of Penthouse. So people went round, what did you like, what didn't you like? Well, I liked that column. I think those photographs could have been better. The layout on that wasn't great, and so on down the line. And it came to the former deputy editor, and he said, I particularly liked the centre spread. And we were all sat there thinking, there was no centre spread. We don't have one of those. At which point he went, and there was naked female in the middle of Caterer and Hotel Keeper. He was gone soon after, but he was already leaving. He wasn't fired as a result. So there you are. Jim Turner says in Leicester. I don't know what that's relating to. Don't know. We'll come back to it. Everybody, go and have a fantastic day. As I say, I'm off to go and bask in the glory of West Ham's victory last night. I'm also going to speak to mayoral candidate and my mate, apparently, Sean Batra, see what he's all about today. And I'll be back tomorrow, twice. Once in the morning with ZQuip's Chris LaFleur, and then tomorrow night with Tim Burnhope from JCB. Hope you can join us for one, or better still, join us for both. Till then, everybody, have a splendid day. See you soon.